In practices, if you watch guys like Ivan Demidov, Macklin Celebrini, and Connor Bedard, they look insanely skilled. Their hands look sweet, they're dangling guys, they're making goalies look silly. But what's crazy is there's actually many players who look and feel super good in practice, but when the game comes, they feel so nervous, so hesitant, and so self-doubting that they're like a different player in games. In practice, there's total trust, there's flow, yet the second the game comes, they feel heavy and rigid. Players who struggle with this are called practice players. And if that sounds like you, then you need to answer this question. What's really the difference between a practice player and a game player? I've worked with over 400 players from AAA, the OHL, the USHL, the National Development Team, D1, and Pro Leagues all the way up to the AJHL, and I've seen the same patterns over and over again that stop players from taking their practice skills into games consistently. Maybe they show flashes of that practice skill in games, but they can't consistently bring it out. That's why in this video, I'm going to show you 5 powerful frameworks that I've used to help my clients understand exactly what makes someone a practice player and exactly how to break out of it and become a game player who feels just as confident in games as they do in practice. So let's get into it. So on paper, a practice player and a game player look exactly the same. Same general shooting ability, same edge work, same kind of hands, same work they put in the gym, but the difference shows up when the lights are on and when all the attention from scouts and coaches and all the fans are there. So the practice player trusts himself in drills, they feel loose in small area games, they make plays without thinking. But then the game shows up and that same player starts playing it safe, they chip pucks away when they could just attack, they second guess every touch, and really the mindset they have is they're trying not to mess up more than they're actually trying to make a difference in the game. Now the game player has the same general tools, but in games they hunt puck touches, they want the puck all the time. When they get the puck, they're attacking space, they're threatening players, they're not scared to take players on, they want the puck in big moments. So what's actually changing? You have to understand that this is happening under the hood. You're not going to fix this with more mechanics drills. You're not going to fix this by getting 50 pounds stronger on your back squat. And you're not going to fix this by just shooting 10,000 more pucks. The problem is something called your self-image, and what you really need to understand is how to rewire that self-image or shift your identity, as I call it. So the real reason you struggle in practice is because you have a hidden script that's been wired into your subconscious mind. Essentially what's going on there is you're thinking, I'm good here, I can make mistakes, they don't really matter, I can try stuff. But then in games you have a wired script that's a little bit different. That script says, I can't screw up here, I'm not really that guy, I just need to be safe. So what your brain is really wired is it's saying, okay, I'm allowed to be this player in this situation, but I can't be this player in the other. So you have to ask yourself, who am I allowed to be in these different environments against better teams in a higher league, in a different game or practice situation? Because that answer controls how much risk you take, how aggressive you are hunting the puck down, and especially how you respond to mistakes. So you have to understand you don't play to your potential, you play to that script that's been wired in your head, and you always default to what feels normal and right based on that script. So the difference between a practice player and a game player isn't actually talent, because in the practice the player has talent. It's really about where you've anchored your self-image and your identity, and that identity then ripples out into what you're allowed to do on the ice, how much risk you're allowed to take, what mistakes really mean. It basically branches out and tells you how to approach all those different things based on where your identity sits. Now before we go deeper on this and then also talk about how to fix this, I want to quickly pause. So if this is really clicking with you and you've watched my videos before and you want help actually rebuilding your identity instead of trying to piece things together and remember a few cool things from a video, then there's 2 links below. The first link is where you can actually learn about what it looks like to work with us. So it breaks down the system, how we approach things, and how we use the mental rewire method. It's something different than you've ever done before when it comes to mental training or just hockey development in general. So if you want to learn more about it, check it out there. And then also if you want to apply, you can actually apply. We'll get back to you. We'll let you know if we think we can help. We only reach back to players who are confident we can help, so we're not going to waste your time. And then the second link is going to teach you the foundations of our mental training approach. So if you want to actually learn those skills and get started with the full free mental training of tools and systems that I've taught to super high level players, then you can check out that second link. Okay, now back to the video. So here's the sneaky part about your subconscious mind, your self-image, and your identity. And this might surprise you. Your brain does not actually care about goals. It cares about consistency. What I mean is that your brain has a familiar state that it's addicted to getting into. And it would rather keep you in that old familiar way of feeling, that old familiar state, than it would have you shift into a new state or a new version of you. The reason for this is because when you shift out of what you're used to, so if you're used to being super nervous and anxious and throwing pucks away, when you start to be confident, when you you start to trust yourself, it actually feels a little weird. It's like, I'm not this type of player. And your subconscious mind wants to pull you back to that middle, that thing that you say you are, that you know you are deep down. So you might say things like, I want to be a D1 guy. I want to be a point per game player. I want to be the go-to guy on my team. I want to be a pro player. But your subconscious identity or self-image is actually wired to be, I'm the underdog. I'm more of a streaky player. I'm a guy who heats up and then kind of comes back to baseline. That's why you can start to play well. You can start to bring your practice skills into games. You can move up the lineup. You can even have scouts start watching you. But then right as that momentum starts to build, something inside you almost like hits the brakes and kind of slows you down. You make a few stupid plays. You start playing a little safer. You stop expecting the puck. You start overthinking it. And it's not because you don't want to be successful. It's because your mind gets scared when it steps out of who you've been. When you start playing well, it's basically this isn't matching that image. Your brain goes, ooh, this isn't who I am. I should stop doing this. And this happens because your brain has two core modes that it functions in. So there's the flow state you. This is the version of you that shows up when you're having your best practices and when you have your best games. You're calm, you're confident, you're present, you're attacking, you're reading the play, you're not overthinking it. This is when you're playing on your instincts. And if there's one thing to take away from this video, it's that you always have the ability to get into that flow state version of you. But the problem is that we have a second mode called the protector you that gets in the way. And this is really what you can think of as like mental blocks that come up. But I want to explain to you what mental blocks really are, so you don't just think of them as this thing you're never going to get rid of, but a thing you can actually work through and understand how to build into stepping into that flow state you consistently. So that second mode, that protector version of you, this is a layer that jumps in when it senses danger. So when you start to step out of your identity, when you become unfamiliar with the terrain, this part of you starts to say things like, don't make mistakes, coach is watching, just chip it in, scouts are here, don't make dumb plays. And you can think of these like defense mechanisms that are built from past experiences where bad things happen, maybe on the ice or off the ice, and now your brain says, ooh, we can't have that pain happen again. So that's why in practice, that flow you is the thing that's actually performing, because these protectors don't feel the need to step in. They don't sense that there's any pain that could come up if you do something wrong. But in games, you have the protector version of you that jumps in and takes the wheel. And this is why it can feel like two different players, because your mind essentially has two different versions of you that can step in. And the goal is not to kill the protector you, because it does have good intention. It doesn't want you to make stupid plays. It doesn't want you to go like headfirst in the boards and make some dumb play. The goal is you want to train that protector to allow that flow version of you, that calm, confident self, to actually come out when these big moments come up. And to do that, you actually have to learn how to update your identity in a way that your brain actually trusts and accepts. So instead of snapping back that old identity where you used to be anchored, you actually lift that anchor up and anchor it to a better version of you. Not just the ability you have now, but you anchor it ahead of you. And then it becomes something that pulls you forward into a more confident, more skilled, more point version of you. This is where most practice players get stuck, is they think, oh, I identified the problem now. I'm not able to get into flow state. Okay, so here's how I'm going to fix it. I'm just going to use a bunch of surface level tools. So you try positive affirmations. You try meditation for a couple sessions or maybe for a week. Maybe you try visualizing on game days and you think, oh, this is going to work. This is going to really allow me to be confident in the game. But they do it for a bit. Nothing really changes. And then they say, oh, mental work isn't really for me. This stuff is stupid. It doesn't really work. But the issue isn't the tools. The issue is that you didn't have a system that actually teaches you how to create that new anchor, to create that new identity that pulls you forward. So you have to understand that your brain doesn't really change through words. It changes through trust, and trust is really built through evidence. But evidence doesn't just have to come from, ooh, I scored a whole bunch of goals, so now I get to be confident. Evidence can really be built through a mental system. Now I'm going to break down the simple version of this, but there is a whole way that we do this we call mental rewiring, which allows you to understand how to actually rewire your mind at a deep subconscious level to re-anchor your identity at a way further place ahead. And again, it pulls you into being more confident. And so essentially, once you do this, so once you do create this anchor forward by basically stepping into a better version of you, what happens is that you start to build more proof, which then reinforces that, oh, this identity is real. I am actually better than I've been saying. And at first, it is going to feel a little bit fake to do this, but when you do start to step into this and you start to create what we call a new memory system, you'll find that you start to instinctually jump into plays. You instinctually hold the puck a little longer. You instinctually want to be the guy that's driving everything. everything. Because what you've done is you basically built trust in the system so that that flow version of you is able to step in instead of having that old protector you try to come in and say, ooh, this is uncomfortable, because you've actually changed how you see yourself, who you really believe you are on the ice. And again, the issue is that you have the ability right now, so now you need to actually teach yourself, I can trust myself, I can do this. And so here's the simple process you can use to actually change this. And so what we need to do is you basically need to understand what protectors come into play. And so this process is built on a couple different psychological techniques. One of them is called IFS, another one is called CBT, and then it's also a combination of a few other approaches. So this isn't just me totally making it up. But the thing you have to understand is that when this all comes together into one coherent hockey mental training system, this is where everything starts to change. So the first thing you want to identify is what are the practice player scripts that are playing in your mind consistently. So maybe these are thoughts or emotions that are coming up, but you want to start to notice them and think, is it I'm the guy who falls apart when things start to get serious? Is it I'm just a player who can't really make plays in these situations? Is it I don't want to screw up because I'm going to let people down? Is it I don't want to screw up because I'll be a failure? When you start to identify these, now what you want to do is basically sit with these emotions, sit with these thoughts, and start to understand them as protection systems. These are like little personalities that are designed to protect you from feeling pain. They don't want you to feel negative feelings. They want you to feel good enough that life is all right. And so they come in and they basically anchor you to, let's not step out of the comfort zone. Let's stay in our little circle of competence, basically. And these prevent you from having what people call in the kind of mindset space, they prevent you from having a growth mindset. So what you have to do to start to break out of this is understand it, get to know them, really get in touch with them. And we have a whole system for actually doing this. But the key is you actually have to define, okay, these are the things that are getting in the way and stopping me from being able to get into this state. I need to build trust with them. And then you actually need to define the player who you want to be. You need to create that clear identity. So I'm a calm, attacking, play-driving player. I'm composed with the puck. I love to shoot the puck. Or I'm a goal scorer. I'm somebody who has the ability to score. And then what you need to do is you need to clarify, okay, what does this person do? You need to put this stuff in clear actions. What do you do in terms of preparation? What do you do in terms of practices? How do you do things in games? You need to create the framework of this is the behavior system that aligns with that person. Because ultimately, what an identity really is it's a set of habits. It's what I do. It's not just what you think. It's not just what you feel. Yes, those things obviously matter. You need to change those at a foundational level so that you take different actions, but you need to clarify what do those feelings and thoughts lead to? Because if you just feel and think differently in a game, it doesn't really matter if you don't actually do different stuff. This is why you can never really separate mental training from hockey IQ training, because you need to remove the mental blocks, but then also know what it's going to look like on the ice. What are the things you're going to do? This is why we actually work with Conscious Hockey. Xander, he is a beast at actually helping players to understand how to make better decisions. And he does it in a way that's not just studying film, it's actually teaching you how to work on the principles of what the best players in the world do. Someone like a Lane Hudson or a Connor Bedard or an Ivan Nemedov, what do they do on the ice? What are the principles that they use? Not just he does this thing on the breakaway or he does this thing on his own entry. It's like, how do they attack? How do they actually threaten certain things? Once you understand the principles and you understand the thoughts and the feelings that underlie it, this is how you actually create a new anchor into that new identity. Now, what you need to do is then create an action system that's going to then wire this into your subconscious mind, which is again going to create that evidence of, oh, I am this player. And so you need to basically step into that on a daily basis. That's why we have players do this thing called mental rewiring, which basically helps players to go into their subconscious mind, rewire how they think, feel, and act before they get into practices. They do it in practice, but then what they also do is practice mentally doing it in games so that when they get into the games, their brain says, ooh, I've been here before. Oh yeah, I have done this. And you have the evidence which anchors your identity ahead of where you are, and this creates deep confidence in yourself. Now, the key with this is you obviously have to have the skill. I'm not telling you can just believe your way to the NHL, but if you have the skill and practice and you look amazing there, but then you can't take it into games, you need to create a new identity. You need to rewire your mind so that you can actually perform up to what your skills are capable of doing. And so that's what closes the gap. So now to actually execute this, I'm going to break this down in two simple forms. So now here's the mistake most players make, is that they think identity needs to change in one weekend. It's like, okay, this week I'm going to do a bunch of visualizations and I'm going to meditate a bunch, and then this weekend everything's going to change. But the thing you need to realize is that it doesn't just change because you have a couple good games. You need to actually change a few core things. First, you need to actually create a system. A system is a set of consistent habits that you do that's going to actually teach you how to consistently rebuild your self-image on purpose, train yourself to get into that flow version of you, and it's going to make this something you don't have have to think about, because if your training becomes automatic and you just set the routine up and then you just execute it, it becomes automatic that you do rewire your mind. Now, how we do this is with something called a weekly training tracker. So what this teaches a player is how to do a full analysis of everything they do in terms of preparation, and it allows them to basically strategically tweak and tune the way they prepare so that they can actually create a new way of operating. They can rewire their whole mental system. And so for you to start, it could be taking a piece of paper and just writing down what are all the things I want to do on a daily basis that are going to make me a better player. And you want to do this for mental, you want to do this for IQ, you want to do this for physical training, and you want to do this for skills and mechanical training. And then basically what you want to do is tune your environment to make those things easy. So you basically want to set up an environment with a couple of your teammates. You want to set it up with different things you put around your house, different things you put in your hockey bag in terms of how you set up your phone. You want to do all these little tweaks that are going to basically guide you into doing and thinking and feeling the things that you want to do and become. And so first, you want to talk to a couple of your teammates and you want to hold each other accountable to a new level of training and preparation. So each week you guys can say, okay, this week, what are you going to work on? You can set up a little group chat with a couple of your line mates or a couple teammates who are really driven and say, okay, everybody identify what's your biggest thing you're going to work on. What's one big strength? What's one big weakness? Then you identify what actions am I going to take? Am I going to do certain mental training things? Am I going to do certain physical things? What am I going to do before practice? Maybe you guys rent the ice as a group because it's cheaper when you rent it with a couple people and you go and work on certain skills. When you identify these things, you can even watch film together. You can send clips to each other. And this becomes a reinforcing environment within the team environment that allows you guys to kind of level up faster than everybody else. Then once you have that going, my recommendation is you guys actually join our program, which again sounds super annoying. I get it. But what we've done is we've created an exclusive group of players who just care about getting better. Players who are learning mental training systems. They're learning this mental rewiring method and they're applying it on a weekly basis. They're studying what the best players are doing. They're learning the new IQ principles that these guys like Bedard and Celebrini and Demidov are using, and they're applying it to their game consistently. Now we do this for forwards, we do this for defense. We basically work with players almost every day of the week. We have tons of live calls that we do where you can meet with me, where you can meet with other players, and this is a system like nothing else that I've ever seen. It's not just like one-on-one therapy sessions every week, but it's actually a way to get yourself around an environment of players that take this super seriously. And then what you do is you basically then get the personalized help you need to figure out, okay, what are the certain feelings I need to create? What are the certain thought patterns I need to wire? What are the certain action things I need to wire in terms of IQ? And then you create your systems, you reinforce it, you get coaching again, and this becomes just a reinforcing system. What you really need to do is kind of tune up your system and how you prepare yourself, and then you need to tune up the way that you kind of build your environment to then make that system easy. And when you do this, everything changes. So if you want to figure out how to actually do that and work with us, you can click the first link below. You can click the second link if you want to just try out some of the training and learn more. But ultimately, if you start to take this seriously and you understand the kind of foundations of what it means to change your identity and really rewire that, as opposed to simply just saying like, I'm going to think some more positive thoughts, it's about designing a system and designing an environment that creates inevitable outcomes. And that's what we do. And that's why I built everything that I've built. And I hope this all makes sense. I hope you don't feel like this is me just kind of giving you like general advice. But if you have questions, comment them below. I'll make videos answering any of the specific questions you're asking. But ultimately, I just want to help you guys to get the most you possibly can out of your hockey career. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.